Hey, you little freaks. Hey, how you doing? It's me again, your pal. Well, I'm here to talk about being born into a satanic cult full of witches, warlocks, and druids, whatever you want to call them. It kind of sucks when you're plopped into a situation like that. But that's what happened to me, and I dealt with it as best I could, and that meant war almost my whole life. I don't regret it. I really don't, because you little freaks have made me fabulously rich. Not here, on the other side. I mean, I am going to have the biggest spread you can ever imagine. You're not going to get to see it though, because you're all going to be in hell. But I can tell you, I really kind of hope before you get tossed in, you get to walk by it and see where I'm going to be living, because we've been promised that in the Bible. All the losses that you take here for the cause of Christ will be returned tenfold. How much money I had stolen from me by these creeps? Oh, I can't even count. I mean, the stuff that they have done to me and Esther is so outlandish, crude, disgusting, filthy, evil. But this is, see, I read about the history of the Baptists, and I'll post that too. Written in like 1904, they talk about the history of Baptists in New Jersey. And this man's writing, and he said that if it was for the Puritans, if it was up to them, there wouldn't have been any Baptists in America, because they must have known something about the Baptists. And this man, who is a Baptist, writing about the Baptists, he traces the history of the Baptists back to the Druids. And he's writing about them like, they had some good ideas. I figured somewhere it had to tie in, because all these witches and warlocks are hiding in the Baptist churches. Had to be. So I did some research on it. And the Druids from Wales became the Baptists that ended up coming over here and settling in Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey. Wow, what a coincidence. So the Druid Council, they were hiding long before they actually came over here. They were hiding who they were. They never stopped being Druids. And this man, who's writing the history of the Baptist Church in New Jersey, says that all the first pastors here were Welshmen. What a coincidence. Wales, right? I mean, Stevie Nicks, the singer, she's got, her record label is Welsh Witch Music. They're known for, witchcraft. The Prince of Wales, who is heir to the throne of England, they're given the nod. Wales is given the nod, and the title is given to the prince, who is going to succeed the throne. And of course, their emblem is a dragon. I know who you are. It's about time everybody else does. And with my history here in Albion and the church in Williamstown and Clement and Ariel and all these surrounding churches, it's all the same thing. They all knew, these molesters went from one church to the other, and nobody turned them in, nobody stopped them, nobody said anything. They were allowed to just continue, because they didn't have a problem with the churches. They just wanted things to stay quiet. The problem would be if people because these freaks are so bad. Some of them were out of hand. They were sloppy, and the witches didn't. The warlocks did not want that, and they have a inherent fear of going to court because of the witch trials. Even though witches weren't being burned, they were true Christians being burned. But they buy into this. It's so strange. They're such fools, They buy into this whole thing. Like, there's this guy Irv, and he's got a brother Harry. Kind of people in the church system that I'm talking to here know who they are. And Irv was a loudmouth, trashy asshole. Nobody liked him. And I remember hearing conversations. I mean, this is years ago. They would like to get rid of him. I mean, I have to deal with this guy, and he's around, and he was such an asshole. He's a big guy too, like humongous guy. But they would say to each other, yeah, well, he's in the fire department, and he's a fire chief and all. And being witches and warlocks, that was like such a big deal to them. So he got a pass because he was a fireman. This is how insane they are, these people. This is actual conversation. It happened. I heard it. And you're insane. All of you are insane. And you are fools and followed a lie, and you're going to go to hell. And I'm still around. And I wonder why you wanted to do me in so many times. You were not able to. You're not able to. There's always something that happened right at the last second that, allowed me to escape. I wonder what that was. Because I know you still think that I'm in the witchcraft and that I just wouldn't share my spells with you. Hey, people, this is how retarded these freaks are. They sought out a spell book they thought I had that they never did have. Because they couldn't understand the power of the Holy Spirit, and that God, will do miracles through His servants if they allow Him to. It's witchcraft to them. So I had to have a spell book, and they forever searched for it because I had better stuff than they did. Isn't that right? I mean, the stories I can tell are so bizarre. I'll tell you, I was living in Clementon with this Blanche, one of one of Jean's friends. I think it might be Laurie's sister, younger sister. I'm not positive about that. I'll find out though. Blanche was a blonde, and she was the blonde in the group of a bunch of brunettes, and they were all jealous of her. She was better looking than all the rest of them, and she used to charm the hell out of a man. And jealousy, they couldn't stand it that she, used to own the room every time she went in it. My grandfather was like in love with her. He didn't even want the rest of them to come over without Blanche. She had better come over, and he kept some. She had like his favorite candy or something. He kept it in the house just for her, and she'd flirt with him and all, and he'd fall all over her. Right? Huh, Lori? Huh, Jean? Do you think I forgot? I didn't forget. You freaks. I didn't forget anything. So I'm living with Blanche in Clementon because my father built a house on the Freedom Road on the corner and of New Freedom Road and Berlin Road. And then he bought the property next door and built a bigger house. And he had built an upstairs. It was like it's the length of the house, but it's an apartment, whole thing for his parents to move in. And so they did. I think it was 1965, something like that, 66. On a truck driver's salary too. Yeah, right. Yeah, sure. He was a union thug, a Teamsters thug. That's what he made his money. So he was into all kind of stuff. Hit construction companies, all kind of nonsense and all illegal crap. And again, my brother and sister, just shut up. Jennifer, you weren't born yet. I know you hate that. Jennifer is so into herself that she thinks the world, like the rest of the world and history before she was born, is so unimportant she doesn't want to hear about it. Everything starts with when she was born, because my mother worshipped her like she was a goddess, even though she ain't much. She treated her like she was, Aphrodite, and like the most beautiful thing in the world, and she's not. My mother thinks she's good looking, and she's not. She used to say, if you look at a picture of my parents, so they, where I lived, say my parents, Bob Whitley was so much better looking than his wife Jean. He so outclassed her, and she actually is so delusional. She thinks he got lucky to have her. People that know her, like, I just don't see what she sees when she's looking in the mirror. Her skin and her face is so pockmarked. What do you think? People don't notice that, Gene? Huh? You're not a good-looking woman. You never were. And you were fortunate to have Bob Whitley to walk around with, even though he, didn't regard you. He wanted somebody else. Because I remember after I flipped over the Albion Bible Church and the Hags lost, there was some woman, the best looking woman in the church, really, one of your good pals, who got up and walked over to the pew where Bob was sitting and sat right next to him. And they were talking about running off together. Huh? You think I forgot? No, I didn't. Who would want you? Really. He slept on the chair for 30 years. And I don't blame him. Really, I remember getting up out of bed. I heard a noise. And my parents' bedroom was across the hall. I hear a noise and I get up out of bed. And it's daytime. I guess I'm taking a nap or whatever. Forced nap. And here's the old forest ranger, the park ranger from across the street in the Scout Reservation, putting his boots on in my parents' bedroom. And he looks up at me. He's got his white wife beater on. And he kind of just shrugs. Like, what am I going to say, kid? Yeah, sorry, pal. Right. I know. Because all these women in the churches I went to were running around sleeping with everybody. And so were the men. Might as well just call it a big orgy. And they were messing with kids. They're disgusting pigs. That's what they were. So, anyway, I'm living in Clementon because my grandparents lived there on Mount Vernon Avenue. And when my father built the house with the upstairs for them, they kept their house in Clementon for a little while. Because my grandmother used to like to get driven down there and sit out in the yard and talk to her friends on the street and everything. Well, that didn't last too long because Blanche is living there with me, and she didn't have any money. And so she used to take me out in a stroller and walk to the end of the block, and there's the Hideaway Bar. It's right there. And it is, if you look at a map, Overbrook Junior High, I don't know if it was called that then, it might have been Camden County Regional, their field fence ends right at the end of Mount Vernon Avenue. So she would walk over to the fence and park the stroller. I'd be sitting in it. And I was so far ahead of my time. I'm playing a baby, actually, as a baby. But I wasn't. I could talk and read at a ridiculous age. So Blanche is out there parading around for the people that come in and out of the bar at lunch, trying to get some business, and she did. She was a really attractive woman. So while she's there, the kids from Overbrook Junior, they would come over to the fence and try to talk to her, like the boys and all horny, and she'd talk to them and play them, And when one of the bar customers would come and approach Blanche, she's not talking to the kids anymore, of course. So she got her back turned to them. Well, they're throwing sticks at me, and I'm in a stroller here. They're throwing sticks at me, hit me in the face with it, and all that. And I'm like, I'm not going to blow her cover, but I'm sitting there. I'm like, you little bastards! You're throwing sticks at what you think. Well, I mean, is an infant. You're throwing sticks at a baby. Really? Because my mother was a whore. So they were allowed to do that. That's what they thought. So, well, the neighbors didn't want a cat house on Mount Vernon Avenue. So they got pissed the heck off. And my grandmother couldn't go there anymore because every time she did, she'd hear from all the neighbors, this is a whorehouse and all this stuff. And they were pretty much driven out of there. But they kept the house as long as they could. And what happened was they had more girls in there. And I remember some of the men that used to visit there. I remember some of the men that used to visit there. I know who they are. One's a local pastor. He bought me a little car. Thought he was going to win me over. And when he turned around to leave, I threw it at his back and him right in the back. I remember more than you do. But so these guys would come over, and some of them they'd rough Blanche up. Now Blanche was what she was, but she was nice to me, at least. I mean, she didn't abuse me, and she was just, she did what she did, but she was cool with me. So I didn't hate her, and I didn't like these guys beating on her. So I would say stuff to them, and we were so freaked out that this little infant is talking to them. No teeth, They didn't want me in the house when they were sleeping with her, so she used to put me out on the front, like a step, little sidewalk there. They put me out there while she was doing her business, and kids would walk by at lunchtime. There was a little creek that goes behind Overbrook Junior High, and they would go down there to smoke pot, smoke cigarettes, play around with girls, whatever. For when recess was there, and they would come up through the back streets to go back to school, and if they saw me sitting out there, they'd throw stuff at me. They'd throw sticks and or rocks or whatever. And I just had enough one day. I was just like, you better get the heck out of here. And they got so scared at this little infant that shouldn't be able to talk, and said that to them, that they were like, your mother's a whore. She's a whore. And they started throwing rocks at the house. So we're going to tell our parents, and they ran away. So, I thought, I'm going to have some fun now. So I got out of my stroller and I walked into the block, and I climbed the fence. I shouldn't be able to do that, but I did. Talk about a massive evacuation of the playground and the screams. I laughed my ass off, and I quick ran back to the stroller and got back in it, and that was the end of the house, because they wanted this house, they wanted these people or women that were in there out, so they started breaking windows, throwing rocks. I mean, it didn't take long after that. They wanted out because the whore and her demon-possessed son were living there. So that was the end of the house on Mount Vernon Avenue. But I remember one particular kid. who was going there. His name was John. Red hair, chubby, and the way he said whore when he threw rocks at me was this particular way he talked. Ended up being in the same union with him. And I got to beat his fat ass probably 8-9 years ago. He's dead now, the fat piece of shit. He lived in Albion too, by the way. But yeah, Johnny, burning in hell now, huh? You piece of garbage. I got you back all those years later. So funny, man. The things I went through. But the little Jean's little group that she was hanging with. The person I thought that really was not like them the most was Helen. I thought she was a lesbian. She wasn't very girly at all, not at all. And she'd be laughing all the time, but she looked like Lily Tomlin basically, and she never had a boyfriend. I never seen her with any guy and you know, she just, I would say she was lesbian, but I never saw her with a girl either. It looked like that to me. So I'm trouble wherever I'm staying. I'm trouble, and I find out from Helen because Blanche and Bob and Jean and my grandfather scammed, I think it was 25 grand out of a doctor in Camden, saying because this guy was banging Blanche, and so they scammed him into thinking that I was his kid, and he had to pay. He paid Blanche off because he was some up and coming surgeon there, and they threatened to go to all his, that would ruin you back in the day if you wanted to get on these boards and be in country clubs and you had a sordid background and all that. So he paid her off, and my side of the Whitley's got a cut of that money. And Blanche decides, she's got me now. She decides to go out west to resettle and pretty much disappear. But she doesn't take me. She's like, oh, I'm going to go out there and get established and get a job and find a place, and then I'm going to come get back and get you. So in the meantime, I'm staying with Helen, who is the lesbian of the group of shrews. Now, she was always funny and laughing, and I didn't think anything, whatever. I thought actually Blanche was going to do what she said. And a few weeks went by, and Blanche calls Helen, and Helen's there, and she's like, and I'm hearing one side of the conversation, and she's like, Blanche, it doesn't sound like you're going to come back. What are you doing? Like, what do you mean you haven't gotten a job? What are you doing? And she was very nervous, and what happened was Blanche hooked up with some guy, bought a nice car, and pretty much blew all the money. I don't remember exactly how long it took her, but I was living with the Whitleys by the time she came back to get me after she was broke. And I told her to get lost. But before that, I'm living with Helen, and Helen's going to work, and she's leaving me home in her apartment, and I'm so small. I'm under 2 years old, but I had the mind of an adult, so it's not like I was going to burn the house down. I just watch TV and chill out. And when she got home, we play Scrabble. I know, you don't believe me. I really don't care what you believe. That's the way it goes. The cult knows it's true. Now, don't you? Huh? All the cult members know. Like, you put all your hopes and dreams into me. I was an Aquarian male in the age of Aquarius. And the DuPonts and all the rest of you, you had your little plans for me, what you wanted me to be, and it didn't work out because I told you all screw off. I would rather be a Christian and be with you. But Helen, when she was gone, she would be like, look, I don't want you going in my room. I don't want you going to, here or there. And basically, I couldn't do anything. She's kind of said, like, just watch TV. And you know, I did that, but for a little while, but that's boring. So I was kind of wondering. I'm like, she knows that I have the mind of an adult. Why is she so? I could see not going to her, tell me not to go to her room, but why would she be so adamant not to touch anything or go in any of her drawers or anything? You know. So I just said, screw it. I'm gonna start looking around. So I open up a closet, and on the floor are these two devil heads, black devil heads, and I'm like, what the heck are these? And they were just like ceramic figures. They weren't, you know, you didn't have slots for a bank, or they weren't candle holders. They didn't have, I don't know what they were, just ornaments like that you put out, like, you know, knickknacks, but a little bigger than that. And I thought that was a little bizarre. And I started looking around more, and there was occult literature all over the place in the drawers, and Satanic Bible, you know, whatever. There was nothing but witchcraft, occult books, like all these jars of spices, these weird, and labeled with all this crap, hair, people's hair and all. And I'm like, this lady's a freak. So I went in her room now, because she's going to be dishonest with me about that. I can do whatever I want. Looked under her bed. There's robes like you'd wear with a cow and all. I mean, everything you could ever imagine this lady had to do with witchcraft. So when she got home, I confronted her about it, and she was manic, and she flipped out, and she came after me. You know, she had her hands out. She was like, "Rrr." So I'm running around the apartment, and this lady's chasing me around, and I turn around and I screamed at her, you know, to knock it off, and she backed away and slunk in the corner, and went into her room and closed the door. And I'm like, what the frig is going on here? So she went to sleep for like days, it seemed. She wouldn't get up. And finally somebody came, knocked on the door, you know, somebody, whatever, her friends to visit. And I was like, yeah, man, this broad hasn't been up in 3 days, you know, and she's a freak. So they got me out of there. I got taken in by the Whitleys, and Helen moved out to California. And before she left, she stopped by the Whitleys, and she's leaning down, and she says to me, I know you think I'm bad, but I'm really not. And she had this book, this little book, and she said, I want you to have this. It's a book of our memories together. She took some pictures and all this, and there's other things she had in there. And I looked at it, and I thought, everything was colored, like all the pages were colored, and I'm like, man, this thing is daggone evil. So I threw it in the trash. You know, well, I'm not going to tell you exactly where I threw it in the trash. It's not really the trash can. I can still get it if I want. You know, I had to do some. I'd have to bend some arms to get it, but I can get it. I know where it is. I thought it was evil, and I threw it away right away, because I didn't want to have anything to do with her. And this is the beginning of my life with these freaks. And by the time Blanche came back to get me, like I said, she didn't care about me. You know, she took the money, and she came back when she was broke. You know, and she wanted me to come live with her. I said no, because at least the Whitleys had money. You know, they had money. This girl's broke. So I just told her to get lost, because she might. I mean, who knows what she would do? She might sell me, or if I found out what she was. And but Helen, the one that went out to California, I found out she was in charge of the rest of the four idiots, Lori, Jean, Polly, and Blanche, because they were all in a little cult together, you know. And I remember everything, and I do mean everything. So just watch your step. Don't come bother me. I'm allowed to tell my story of my life. and you ain't going to do anything about it. I don't want to see any nonsense from anybody. Don't bother us. We don't want to be bothered. You know, I will tell our story, and that goes for anybody. Don't bother us. We know who we are. That should tell you enough right there. Stay away. So, oh, anyway, this is like another parody. You guys caught me. I'm just kidding. My skits are a little dark. It's like black comedy. You know what I mean? Or dark comedy, whatever, like War of the Roses. I don't know if you find any humor in it, but a big LOL to you. That's all for now.